What's up and welcome back. I'm John Starker, TheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm going to talk about The Only Girl in the Orchestra. This is a documentary short. It's available on Netflix. Um, Between this and The Turnaround, I actually think this one has the shot at the documentary short nomination, I'm going to guess, this year. I thought it was just, it felt more like a cohesive documentary short than The Turnaround. But obviously, Netflix is taking the fact that they create their own content and they do try to go after so they can boost their total amount of nominations. They're trying to get into the shorts category. So they're running documentary shorts. They had live action. They last year they paired with Wes Anderson for um, to win that category. Um, and they also had, by the way, they had the after with David Oyelowo. So I mean, they really do invest into this field, and they've had animated shorts. If anything happens, I love you. One of the best animated shorts I've ever seen. So, um, absolutely, they are investing in it, and this is another solid effort from them to take a shot at an Academy Award nomination and also tell sort of an interesting story in the process about this woman who was a um, who's sort of become a legendary bassist, but didn't start off that way. And they talk very much about how women in orchestras and just the prejudice against them, stuff about men didn't want to play with women because either they were too attractive and they would be distracted by them, or they weren't attractive enough and then they didn't want to play with. So it's like the double-edged sword. If you're too attractive, then you're distracting, but if you're not attractive enough, then they don't want you. Um, but somehow this our title um, double bassist managed to get into the New York Philharmonic, or I don't know why I'm breaking up the word Philharmonic, New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and really has created sort of a legend. The movie begins sort of with this quote from Leonard Bernstein and about what he thought of her as a player. And we learn more about her as an artist and the things that she's frustrated with and how she views the industry and through the various people she talks to in the 35 minutes that this thing exists. But then also, she's an interesting story herself because she's the daughter of John Wayne and another movie icon from back in the day. And that really just sort of, puts her on a different path. And she talks about what that's like and seeing that unique story of how, you know, she would go on to get this high level of classical training base. And then she's also like a great teacher. And then her students go on to do great things. It's really just sort of a great music documentary. I know Disney had the one last year, The Last Repair Shop, that was a little bit more, I guess, tugging at your heartstrings in the music world because it was these people that were like sort of plugging away in this dark room somewhere, fixing instruments all day long, but they had their own stories. So this one is just somebody who we wouldn't have known about otherwise, but somebody took the time to make a documentary about them, and I think they should. I think this person has lived an interesting life. I've forgotten her name. It begins with an O, but Oren or something like that. Um, and she's a killer double bassist, and she's a force to be reckoned with in the world, and she talks about how, I mean, she seems to really know her instrument. She talks about how the weather changes because it's made of wood, so the wood fluctuates. There's a lot of stuff here that if you have any sort of bass in music, I said bass, and she's a double bassist. Anyway, if you have a groundwork in music degree, I don't know, music minor, whatever, that you'll probably find this interesting. um, like I did. So, uh, it it was already sort of aimed in my direction, and then they threw audio description on top of it, which just made it better because I was like, "Oh my god, I can understand everything," you know? So I love that aspect of it, and, this year for documentary has been so impactful, even in documentaries that I've seen, that have been passed my way through screeners that don't have audio description. I'm like pleading with the universe to put audio description on certain ones because um, sometimes when the world is on fire, you get the most interesting documentaries telling these deeply human stories that are tremendously tragic that we're showing to people through their TVs in their comfortable living rooms, and you see how other people have lived or what they've lived through. And there have been several of those documentaries this year, from We Will Dance Again to The Commandant's Shadow to Northernland and Sugarcane, all of which have or speak to some tremendously awful period in time um, that most of us have never had to live through or never will have to live through, but there are people who do. And that reminder, and when you have documentaries like that, it becomes a little hard to appreciate the simple documentaries that say, well, this was a life well lived. This is a woman who broke barriers. She's not asking to be recognized for breaking those barriers. She talks about being really uncomfortable. The fact that when she got her slot, that they did an article on her, because she wasn't the principal, she was just a bassist at that time. So she felt like it was unearned. And I mean, she wasn't there to break the glass ceiling, but break the glass ceiling you do, I mean, sometimes you just do. Um, and I think this documentary recognizes that in fine form, in fine fashion. But I don't know if this year, since we have so many narrative feature documentaries, I don't know that we're not going to get a documentary short that I haven't seen yet, that's going to come through and have the same sort of force as the other four documentaries I've already labeled, and just knock the fuck out of everybody. you know, I mean, if I saw a 35-minute version of No Other Land with audio description, I'd just be like, wow, yeah. I mean, I can't even. Do I like this documentary? Yes, I do. I think it's very strong, but I think it's possible that something else could come along and knock its Oscar chances. So I'm going to give The Only Girl in the Orchestra an A minus. I liked it more than The Turnaround. I thought it was a more cohesive idea and concept from the beginning. It made more sense to me as a story. Like, I understood why we were telling the story. Whereas The Turnaround, I was like, were they already following him? At the time, I was very confused. Anyway, um, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.